Hey yo, look, rest in peace to Barbara Davis. We hit another layer. When she speak to me, it's like she's saying prayers. I feel like Randy Moss when he was on the Raiders. Man, they love it.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 1 of Valley Talks. I'm SUNSWORLDWIDE, and I'm joined with the one and only Trevor Booth.
What's up, man? How we doing?
Doing great. Trevor, if you want, go ahead and tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah, no, appreciate you Worldwide for setting this up. So this is my first year, so a lot of you guys might not know me, but I'm a full-time reporter covering the Suns for Clutch Points. That's my outlet. Worldwide and I, have been able to connect through Instagram. He does a really good job at promoting the team and putting together a lot of content. He's a future journalist, so I'm really excited to work with him and look forward to his career. It's going to be a lot of fun, and anytime Worldwide you can bring passion to this job and provide a different angle, which is what you do, and you compile a lot of work so people kind of go to you as the source. So congrats on everything you've done to this point.
For sure. Appreciate it. Everybody knows Trevor is the king of Sun Spaces. It's a lot of yapping that goes on, but it's a great yapping. It's a great time. Gets kind of hectic in there. It's a good time, but we're going to talk some Suns hoops today. It's March 11th, the time of the recording of the podcast. We're actually an hour away from tip-off, which is really weird since we're on a pretty big East Coast road trip. 4 games. We've got the Cavaliers, the Celtics, the Hornets, and Bucks. Then they return home on the 20th against the 76ers. What are your thoughts on kind of the road trip ahead of us?
No, it's going to be a good one. Worldwide. I asked Kevin Durant after last game about, I think the Suns still have the second hardest schedule remaining by a tankathon that tracks win percentage. And he said that he wouldn't have it any other way with a lot of the teams they're playing being playoff teams and competition. And I don't know if he'd want to be in a situation where you're fighting for your playoff sort of life, if you will, just because, you get that 1 through 6. Suns are still trying to get to the 5, and then obviously 7 through 10 is the plan. So it's you got to win most of these games, but I think when it comes to shoring up some of the areas of this team that are struggling a little bit, or things that you want to correct, like filling in that kind of 8th, 9 man in the playoff rotation. We'll talk a little bit about the point guard situation, and then obviously the fourth quarters have to be tuned up by then. You'd rather go against good competition than not, because you got to beat the best to do what this team wants to do. So let's see, they got Cleveland today, they got Boston, the Hornets, and then the Bucks. So it's no gimmies here.
Yeah, especially like the Hornets too. That's just because the Hornets are kind of they're bad, but that could be a trap game.
Yeah,
for sure could be a trap game. Back into the playoff seeding. We've seen playing teams like the Miami Heat go to the NBA Finals. Honestly, I'm not really worried where we match up against in as far as seeding. I just don't want the play-in, just because you really don't want to be put in that position, especially just kind of with the regular season winding down. It's always nice to get that break, especially with the Suns and what they've kind of gone through this year with health and such. But I kind of made a joke saying I hope I don't have to see the Phoenix Suns play April 14th in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
The starters. Because I will be attending that game, and my dad asked why. I'm like, well, if Devin Booker is playing that game, that means it's not good.
Yeah. No kidding.
How long do two-way contracts last, just for curiosity? Is that like the whole regular season?
I believe so. Yeah, they got to play X amount of games, I think. And then playoffs, I'm not sure. They might have to get signed. I'm not sure. I have to look into it.
Just asking out of curiosity for Saban Lee.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know he's been playing a lot lately, and especially in the Celtics game. I didn't think he would get in much, but hey, he got in. So
I didn't think he was going to see time at all, but right. I guess Frankie V had other problems or other situations he wanted to try out.
At Frank Vogel PHX. No, just kidding.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, that Twitter page is awesome. Yeah. Do you almost feel like the Suns are kind of forcing the Saban Lee thing a little bit?
Well, it's a sign to me. I was saying this after the spaces you might have been on, that it's a sign they feel like they need a point guard, even though for all this talk that they felt like the multiple ball handler attack, they felt confident in Devin Booker and Bradley Beal to man down the position. The fact that Saban Lee's getting minutes in these key games, I know Book was out, so that's probably playing a role in the Celtics game, but they do realize there is a sort of need for that position to do what they want to do.
Yeah, I just thought it was. I mean, there were so many good names that hit the buyout market, such as Patty Mills, Shake Milton. I think that was it as far as point guards that really piqued my interest. I don't know about you. Um, Killian Hayes, I don't know. He's there. Would he be a better option than Saban Lee, do you think?
I mean, I'm sure he can shoot better than Saban Lee. He's just
I
saying,
believe he does,
yeah.
actually.
So if you can provide that sort of threat, I mean, on offense especially, like with this team and where, the structure of how it's built, you got to be able to be a threat on offense. Like even though, and the reason I say that is, we'll probably talk about the rotation and shoring it up. A lot of people who have stood out, like the Gordon, not right now necessarily, and he's got a knee injury, but Royce,
Yeah.
Grayson, Bowl have all been able to do something offensively, and I think that's why they're starting to fit in. But we have questions when it comes to like Okogie, Little, David Roddy, for example, who's gotten some more time in the last couple games. With this team, we know it's not the biggest outside of Nurkic. We know that backup center is an issue. That 5 position, what are they going to do? And
Yeah.
if you're not being a threat on offense, especially like when Kevin Durant's out there having to initiate offense and at his age and getting doubled in this, that, and the third, like that's just a detriment to the team right now.
It's where the Suns start to lose their leads and
Right.
that momentum
Right.
and stuff like that. Those Drew Eubank minutes.
Exactly. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. It's got to be a confidence issue, but
I would have to. I thought he was hooping. Preseason, he was balling.
right.
I thought at the beginning of the year he was balling. I don't know what happened.
I think he had that ankle injury, and then after he came back from that, it's not even, well, he started to do some bad things, like kind of being a little erratic. But I feel like now it's just more so like he's so stuck in his head about, okay, what do I got to do right now, and like overthinking it and forcing
He's trying to
it.
make the right play too much. And worry
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what's going to happen.
And like at the end of the day, like in basketball, like you got to be free. You got to be willing to go out there and do what you got to do. So, absolutely.
Because coming off those pick and rolls in defense, it almost seems like he just kind of freezes at that free throw line and
Right,
just kind of lets the
right,
defender or the offensive player get behind him for easy
right.
bucket.
I feel like too, like there was a play in the last game where he got the ball at the high, like Bull. I think Bull had a big on him. It was Cornette, and Bull passed it to him, and then Drew immediately went into the DHO set to Beal, and then Beal immediately went back to Bull because Bull had a mismatch on. Like it's
Yeah.
those things, like read it. Like you have your sets, but at the end of the day, you got to make basketball plays, and like if Bull's got that mismatch, like you got to recognize that and get the ball to him, like little things like that.
I think there was a play in the Celtics game. I think Cornette was in the bottom left corner, and I think he cut baseline, and Drew Eubanks was just kind of froze at the free throw line. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it was an alley oop to Cornette, and I think Bull kind of got dunked on there.
Mm.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about off the top of your
Yeah,
head.
that makes sense. Cornette had a big game for them. So
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that, I guess.
right.
Did get an interesting message the other day, Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I had an interesting chat. I won't disclose any names, but I'll put the message on the screen for everybody
Okay.
watching the podcast here. It says, haha, I'm not worried about it. Just got to get back healthy. Hopefully our team will get better with chemistry. A lot of fans want the perfect scenario. People look at the stats as everything when it's not. It's about the flow and chemistry of the game. I think you can't put it any better. You can't word that any better, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think at the end of we all knew, I think, right from the Detroit Pistons preseason game, and we saw what the Pistons have been, but that this team has the offense to be special and the personnel to be special. And it's a
100%.
star-driven league, the NBA, and we know that they got players around to hopefully try to fill the gaps with this big three. And the player obviously you can't name, but you'd expect that in the playoff time, that this team has the big three and some guys who can do some things. And in a 7-game series, as much as you want to say about teams who are maybe have more continuity than the Suns, nobody has more talent than the Suns and potential. So
100%.
they always have that in their back pocket.
Back to the talent part. Do you think, in a way, that the Suns or whoever put this team together this offseason, that they just put a bunch of talent together on a roster and just kind of let's see if it works as far as the bench goes?
I think that's a really good point. From my understanding, right, because you start to deduct and kind of use some logical reasoning about the moves that they made. So firing Monty, a lot of us talk about the DeAndre Ayton situation, maybe not getting enough out of him or their relationship, talking about the blowouts in the elimination games, the Mavs game, and then the Nuggets game last year, and then also not using guys. Like I remember when Campaign was not having his best games in the 22 playoffs, that Aaron Holiday was there, and Monty didn't use Aaron Holiday, and then last year not using Ross, not using Warren in the playoffs. So kind of some of that rotational stuff was maybe a question of what's going on there. Obviously, we're not in practices. We don't see what's going on behind the scenes. Even as much as I am reporting on the team, unfortunately, we only walk in when they're at the end of practice, kind of doing some shoot around stuff. So we don't get to see how this team is all fostering its culture and things like that. But on the floor is what we do get to see. And there are questions of like, okay, if there's a Landry Shamet or somebody really kind of not helping the team, like, why continue to play them if your goal is to win a championship? Like it should be it's a cutthroat, it's a cutthroat business. It's a cutthroat league. It's hard to stay in. And, I think those were some questions about Monty. And then you bring in Frank, who is a very good defensive coach. I think a very good playoff schemer, and also very good at fostering relationships with stars. So I felt like from there we could a little bit infer, that the stars are going to run the show and kind of, and it's been best with KD when he's had a say in everything. And, he's kind of being able to be in the loop on how to set up stuff. Kevin Durant knows what it takes to win. It's like the LeBron dynamic. Like they know what it takes to win and they know what it needs to happen around them. And they're not going to budge very much on suggestions about that, let's say. So I felt that, Frank was going to be able to work with the stars and kind of put together some sort of scheme that would maximize their length and width a little bit. And then, in the preseason worldwide, they had, or on the training camp roster, 9 guys who shot 35% from 3 last year at least. So you would think, and then they say multiple ball handler attack, they're going to be able to play, with some pace, be able to have some quick offensive stuff, maybe not even have really offensive sets outside of when you need it, but just kind of be free flowing. And you have 3 guys who can create mismatches for one another. And I feel like injuries play a big role. Absolutely. But at the same time, there's been a lot of issues, and namely the fourth quarter stuff. Like if you look at NBA.com, I was reading a story back to when they started tracking in '97. The Suns are historically the worst fourth quarter team in point differential and in offense, which
isn't next to the Charlotte Bobcats, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I believe the Suns are still bottom 10 in threes attempted, but they're top 8 in 3-point percentage. So the things that they should be doing well, and at one point their pace was slower than with Chris Paul last year. So a lot of the things that you would think makes sense, and I have been very critical about Kevin Young because he was supposed to, bring continuity with Booker and also be able to do stuff. But, I feel like, and again, this is just kind of deducting and seeing what's happening from the outside. So I could be missing the point here, missing what's going on based on practice. But if Kevin Durant is coming out, or the Woj report on Christmas, not Kevin Durant coming out, he didn't say anything, but Woj saying KD's frustrated. KD was, he looked frustrated after the Knicks game when Brunson had 50. Like that to me means that there's not a solid level, or I'm inferring there's not a solid level of communication between KD and the staff. And then when he's put in situations where players that aren't good around him, like Eubanks and Okogie and Lee, who can't shoot, and he's being doubled, like I am, I think it's very safe to say, or I safe from those things to infer, or at least imply, that Kevin Young is not communicating well with Durant. There was reports of the locker room being split with Vogel and Young earlier in the year. And again, for everything that Kevin Young is said to be, this offense is not good at what it should be. So I think that I've been critical of him a lot, and I'm kind of standing on that right now.
I feel like the Phoenix Suns have found the most success in offense when they do the drive and kick the most. I feel like because most of the guys that have out there, when you have a Kevin Durant, when you have a Beal, you have a Booker, they just draw so much gravity. They're like the sun, or I don't know. You pick one, either one.
Yeah.
You got the Earth, you got the sun, you got the moon out there, and then you got the other little planets on the 3-point line. when they drive in, everything else just sucks to them. Pause. And they just kick it out. This is where guys like Eric Gordon, this is where Yuta Watanabe was supposed to shine. But
Yes.
it's just, I feel like when they go away from that, that's where the offense is just dead. And they just get into this ISO ball situation. And before you know it, the shot clock's already drained before
Yeah,
they get anything out of it.
exactly. I think Yuta was expected to be a big piece and didn't pan out. And, I think the James Jones didn't say this, but when after Royce and Roddy were acquired at the press conference, I asked him, was there a feeling that the guys you sent out, so being Yuta, Metu, Goodwin, and the last one, missing the Bates Diop,
Yeah.
were they not meeting expectation? And he said that he didn't answer it, obviously, or, he wouldn't say anything to disrespect those players, I imagine.
Yeah.
But, that they felt like that the Suns had an opportunity to get better with who they acquired. And, I think when it comes to winning a championship, you don't have time to waste. Like, this is probably the year to do it, if not next year, if they decide to run it back with this group. And, Royce is a 29-game playoff starter. Thad, although he hasn't played, is a 33-game playoff starter in his career. So, like, these are guys who have proven they can do it at that level. And I think there had to have been some sort of feeling that Yuta and then KBD is supposed to be a starting candidate, didn't really pan out. Those guys just weren't meeting expectation or what they wanted them to do in this role.
Yeah. I almost feel like I don't want to put anything on the Phoenix Suns, but I almost feel like there's not really like a locker room chemistry. Or when you look at this team, there just isn't. It doesn't feel like a team in a way. I don't
Yeah.
know. Just compared to what we've had the other years, could that be just nostalgic feeling? Who knows? That's why I like guys like Ish Wainwright. I'm a huge Ish guy.
Mm-hmm.
Despite of what he brings on the court, you need guys like that in your locker room. You need that. Um, I don't know. I don't know about you. Do you just kind of feel like compared to past years, this team just doesn't have that aura, I guess.
Yeah,
Aura.
no, absolutely. I think the best thing about the Suns worldwide, and I always go back to, I think it was Game 5 or Game 2 of the finals where they had that half court possession where the Bucks were playing insane defense and the Suns swing, swing, swing.
Yes, yes.
Ayton gets a layup and one. Like that play like epitomized that team and what they did. And then defensively they were on a string. Like, that this team does not have that, and that's what you kind of gamble for when you go get a Kevin Durant and a Bradley Beal is, when I say it's a star driven league, like when you have a LeBron or a KD, you got to build around those guys and build your scheme and your intention around them. And when the Suns had that group, they schemed it around Booker and Paul, obviously, but Paul being one of the best point guards of all time, and then you've got some guys who you drafted and have been kind of internally developing for a few years. Like, it kind of just fit like a glove. Like, as soon as you could get not only a superstar in Chris Paul, but one who is selfless and has played the game for a long time and happens to be an extremely good passer, like, it all kind of fit. But given to just who Kevin Durant is and his scoring talent, that's what you get when you get Kevin Durant. And you got to put stuff around that. And I feel like there's too much of, we don't know what we're doing. Like, they say multiple ball handler attack, but Devin Booker is the point guard. And then now that Book's been out, a lot of people are lobbying for Bradley Beal to be the point guard. And it's like, these things are
Yes.
all great to figure out in training camp or in the first couple months. But now we're in March, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a month before the playoffs. So that there's not a lot of time to put that stuff together. And I feel like the staff and also the players, namely the superstars, have been slow to connect and gel. I feel like, since January 1st, there's been a lot of positives and the Suns being like top in offensive and defensive efficiency. So that gel has started to come. I think I think a lot of people would have rather seen it be sooner. You can put that probably on injuries. I think that would be the biggest thing with that.
My biggest thing about this team, and I will stand on this until the end of the season. I think this team is not regular season built.
Yes.
This team is more playoff. This is a playoff team. Um, I believe this team will obviously get hot at the right moment, and I think that will be towards the end of this month, beginning of April, once players start resting, and hopefully we already got the playoff seed locked up. I mean, there's so much playoff experience in like just guys that have just experienced the playoffs on this roster, and I think that's what separates us from a lot of other teams in the Western Conference. We just got so many high IQ veterans on this team that will make the right play when it comes to playoff time. And that's why I honestly think that when it comes to matching up against teams like OKC or Minnesota, I don't honestly care who it is. We could play LA, Denver. I think that's what gives us the upper hand. I think that's, I mean, obviously we got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal,
Right.
but I just feel like players like right now, I just feel like they don't have a reason to play. I mean, I feel like there's just not enough drive in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, the playoffs are a different game. Like it, and I think Oklahoma City and Minnesota, even though, like you said, they're two of the best and they play extremely good team basketball. There's a reason why not a lot of people are favoring them to go out and win the West. It's just because when you get to that time, you can have the system and all that, but once you get to like game 2 or 3 of a series, like all that stuff kind of goes out the door because everybody knows and their mama what everyone's running, on offense and defense. And at that point, it just comes down to who's going to make plays. And often it's the stars and the players who have been through it and been there. I think Jay Will, who's a good friend of ours on the space, has put it best is like, you can't skip steps with this thing. Like when you get to the playoffs, you have to learn that like, the stuff you can get away with during the regular season, maybe going on a run and shooting a couple threes and shooting yourself out of games. Like that's not going to cut it in a 7-game series. Like every possession matters. Defense and rebounding especially matters. And also a confidence and a level of steadfastness. And I think, like you said, the Suns have 3 guys who are going to be that way in Beal, Durant, and Booker. Booker obviously had a historic postseason last year and in his first year in the playoffs. And then Kevin Durant's always been a playoff riser and Beal too, to my recollection. So when it comes to that point, and then the 3 of them are all pretty egoless. I think that's maybe one of the more unique or rare things with the Suns is like their superstars don't really have any outside ego. Like they're just ready to go play hoops and they want to win.
Yeah.
And that's a good, as much as we talk about fit, like with the Beal Booker thing, like that combo is going to be really good when you have guys who are all kind of locked in and dialed in on the same goal, if you will.
Kind of switching the topic here. With just how many injuries and how many different lineups we've seen this year, I've really came to appreciate players for kind of what they do single-handedly in these different lineups. Josh Okogie, I know a lot of people don't like him because he's not an incredible shooter or scorer, but just his hustle alone has brought so much to this team. And honestly, I think this is kind of the main reason the Suns, I think that's what the Suns were missing against the Celtics the other night, honestly.
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember, because I'll stand on this too. It didn't work at all. I actually look kind of stupid for it. But I was saying, maybe Yuta should get a look next to the starters just to have another shooter, and you maximize your offense and you figure out the defense within that. Obviously, that didn't happen. He didn't shoot well at all when he was here. But Josh played so well in the preseason, and I remember in the Warriors game with the offensive glass, I had asked him right after that, and he said his goal was to make an all defensive team this year. And I think a lot of people were, I certainly was thinking that Josh was on his way to have maybe a breakout sort of year. And unfortunately it's regressed just because of the shooting. I don't think it's necessarily his fault. It's just a matter of you got to make shots on the floor when you're a team with championship expectations. And when you're not making shots, the pressure increases that much more. And I think it's just a matter. Josh wants to be out there. Josh wants to be contributing to winning. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of pressure from the fans, though. Like if you're not contributing to that or helping, there's going to be a lot of, hey, like, what's this guy doing on the floor? And I think that's some of the reason that's turned into, he shoots around 29-ish%. And if you look at B-Ball Index, which is one of the advanced analytics websites, among guards, Josh has the highest 3-point shot quality among guards, and then unfortunately a percentage below 30. So, and when you're next to the big 3 too, and that worldwide, like you were saying, that style of play, the drive and kick, like, the guys who are on the kick have to make shots so the big 3 aren't, overwhelmed and having to receive more attention. Like that's how you become more unpredictable. So if Josh can figure that out and make some shots, when he comes back, by all means, he's a very positive player in the lineup.
Just kind of a tough question for you. So I believe Eric Gordon, I saw this on Twitter, has an option in his contract, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
Do you bring him back next year?
Good question. I think let's say
I want
this.
to hear your answer first.
Yeah, if they win the championship, I would say no, just based on the fact that the Suns got what they wanted out of this whole thing, is winning the title. And if you're Matt Ishbia, there's a sense of like, okay, we won, and like, how can we win again? And I think the people who are going to be around, and Matt Ishbia has proven this just in his short time here, you send out the 4 guys who haven't been producing at the trade deadline, and then you send out Monty, and you reconstruct the roster and everything. Like, if you're not producing and you're not affecting winning, and Eric Gordon has not been bad in any way. I think the reason I say that is just because at times, we talked about earlier in the year when he said to Chris Haynes, I need the ball more, I'm a scorer. And he told us in the media the same thing. Well, the other night in the Boston game, 0 of 3 in 29 minutes and didn't score. Like, there's been games like that for him off the bench. And, he was expected to be a steal when they signed him and everything. So I think just he hasn't met fully the expectation that people had when he was brought here. And for that reason alone, now, if they don't win, that could be a different story. But if they do win, I feel like there's more of a flexibility and a reason to see how can we repeat. And guys who weren't maybe doing their best to help win this year, might be kind of kicked out the door next year.
So, okay. My answer, I was reading the comments here, and our good buddy of ours in the space is D-Rock.
Yes.
He answered it exactly how I would, honestly. He said yes, because our flexibility can't bring us a player with experience like he is. He is just dealing with any issues right now. Keeping Bo, Grayson, Royce, and Gordon are priorities. We can trade our first round and second round pick and Little for backup center or point guard.
Okay.
I 100% agree with that. I honestly wouldn't word it any other way. I'm a huge believer in Eric. It might be a little bit of bias because he does kind of support Suns Worldwide a little bit. But Eric's a shooter, man. He's a veteran. Yeah. There's a reason he's been in this league this long. I don't know how long he's been in the league for off the top of my head, but there's a reason guys like him make it this long in this league and have played competitive basketball in the playoffs and have played big roles on contending teams. Eric will figure it out come playoff time, and he's just the chemistry, the flow of the game. It's all going to come playoffs. It's just going to happen. This team's going to mesh. I think we're going to catch fire. Like I said, towards the end of this month, beginning of April. I don't know. And I know I said this in the spaces, I believe, the other day. When I watch this team, there's just kind of that big question mark. That question mark field, like the Riddler. It's just a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Every game I feel there's just another problem. Some of them are the same, but I feel like there's a bunch of new issues that comes with each game and kind of get discovered and dug up. I just feel like there isn't really an identity for the Phoenix Suns, and I made a post about this a couple months ago about what exactly is the Phoenix Suns' identity, and I kind of feel like we're still in that same spot. I believe I made that back in November when Bradley Beal got hurt again. But I just feel like there's just no identity to this team. Every game feels different. Every game feels like there's a different game plan. One game, Bobo is playing 20 minutes. Next game, he's playing 10. I don't know.
And that's a good point because it doesn't line up necessarily with what you would kind of expect. Frank Vogel had said, that, or well, let me say this. Let me backtrack on all that actually. So, there have been expectations, I think, from what coaches have seemed to imply, and also what we can see on the court, Bol has been playing excellent, and when he plays, I think as soon as he has like a rougher game, he maybe doesn't get as much, and then it doesn't make sense when guys like Eubanks are consistently on the floor getting the minutes that they do. It must be a practice thing like that.
Shame it, Truman.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Who said that?
Yeah. I mean that's really all I could think it could be. And yeah, I that's it's all funny. I think like because of injuries, right, that there's some level of grace that the staff can be had, but I 100% agree with you. There's no identity. I feel like Kevin Durant hasn't gotten the help that he needs from the staff and also the rotations to make him feel comfortable and to make him feel prioritized, because let's face it, they traded some key players for him, and that would seem to believe that he would be the priority in terms of building this championship. We know this is Book's team, but Kevin Durant, to a lot of people, is the best player on this team. So you gotta cater to him, and like you said, it just hasn't been done.
And back to the lineup sim that you just kind of mentioned, you can't have Saban Lee on the same. You can't have him on the court with Kevin Durant. There's a reason that Saban Lee is wide open in the corner and nobody's guarding him. Frank Vogel, I'm gonna put this on the Twitter account because we know he's the real Frank Vogel.
Yeah.
Stop playing Saban with KD, man. You gotta play him with. I don't even know where to play Saban. Honestly, I don't know. Kind of hard to put him in a lineup, I feel like.
It is. I think it makes sense when you need a second playmaker when Booker's out, but you gotta help Kevin Durant. And there's been far too many things worldwide about times in the season. The NBA season's a long one, but I like to look at games that seem to have some sort of playoff type of feel or a little bit of elevated stakes, like the in-season tournament. Some of these games against the big teams, and really a lot of themes with this team emerge from that, namely turnovers, namely some defensive misses, fourth quarter, like that, and that stuff in March I feel like isn't 100% tied down. So it's, I think it's reasonable to kind of, be concerned or see how this team is going to try to address those things with what we got, like 17, 18 games left in the year, and then it's go time.
Not enough games.
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, we are 30 minutes away from tip off.
Yes, sir.
I know you got to do your spaces, so
yeah,
let you go do that. If you guys did, one last thing, Devin Booker will be on the Old Man and the Three podcasts with JJ Redick. Should be a good time. Booker doesn't usually do content like this. But I did see JJ Redick deleted that tweet, so I don't know what's up with that. But yeah, Trevor, it's been awesome. I thought we had a very successful first episode. I hope everybody listening has enjoyed the podcast as well. There may have been some yapping on my part, but it's okay. We will adjust.
If I can just say one thing. Devin Booker, we would love to have you on the Valley Talks podcast.
We would love it. Don't
yes,
know how,
sir.
But listening, comment down below some special guests that you'd like to see on this podcast. Like Ishwan, right? He would be cool. Like some Galloway, just some names, throwing them out there. But yeah, everybody that's watching, sorry. All of our socials will be down below. Go check out Trevor. He covers the Suns closely. He is pretty much the Twitter guy. That's my go-to guy when it comes to Suns news. He should be yours as well. So his Twitter and all of his socials will be down below. All the podcast socials will be down below, as well as mine. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and we'll see you guys in episode 2.
Thank you.